Hey everyone, I'm Gannon, the Domesticated Caveman, and welcome to the Breakdown. Every Tuesday, we're going to take a few minutes to celebrate some incredible toy photography from around the community. We'll talk about what makes these images work, and hopefully leave you inspired to pick up your camera and create something of your own. Let's jump right into this week's featured photos. This first one's from Comic Dad Shots. Andrew always does a great job. One of my favorite things about the toy photography is when a single frame makes me ask a question, and this image does exactly that. Before you even stop to study it, you already know what's happening. One of our turrets is running for his life, and something really bad is right behind him. That visual storytelling is the best. I also love the camera angle here. By getting down low, the photographer puts us on the ground with the subject instead of looking down at him, and instantly makes us feel like we're a part of that chase. Then your eye kind of starts to wander around the frame and you notice all the layers. Raphael owns the foreground. I think that's Raphael. Last time I got that wrong, but I'm still learning my turtles. Anyway, you got Raphael owning the foreground there. The environment fills the middle of the image. That separation creates incredible depth without ever feeling forced. The lighting deserves a ton of credit too. The cool blue atmosphere mixed with the subtle red rim light creates this gritty cinematic feel that reminds me of a movie frame instead of a toy on a tabletop. And then there's my favorite little detail, the blurred sword catching the light from behind. It's such a small thing, but it adds movement and urgency, almost like the action is still unfolding while we're looking at it. If there was one thing that I'd borrow from this photo, it's the commitment to telling the story with a single frame. Every decision, the angle, the lighting, the depth, the posing supports that one idea. And when everything works together like that, you end up with this image, and it doesn't just look cool, it makes people stop scrolling. Our second featured photo this week comes from Toy Imagination. And I absolutely love the atmosphere they've created here. One of the things I appreciate most about this image is that it doesn't feel like a photograph of Jabba's palace. It feels like we're actually standing inside it. Before your eye even settles on Jabba himself, you're already taking in the environment. The cool blue haze, the dim lighting, and all those little figures disappearing into the background make this world feel lived in. And that's something I really admire in photography. Composition plays a huge role here as well. Jabba anchors the left side of the frame with all the visual weight, while the doorway and the crowd on the right naturally pull your eyes deeper into the scene. It creates a wonderful balance that kind of encourages you to explore every corner of the image instead of just looking at the main subject. Then you start noticing the layers. You got foreground details, Jabba occupying the midground, and then an entire cast of characters fading into the background, kind of back in that haze. That separation gives the scene incredible depth and scale, making the palace feel much larger than what actually fits inside the frame. The lighting ties everything together beautifully, and the cool shadows create this unmistakable cantina vibe, while the warmer highlights on Jabba make him the clear focal point without ever feeling overdone. And one of my favorite little details is the steam rising from Jabba's hookah. It's subtle, but it adds movement and light to an otherwise still scene, making the whole environment, it kind of feels like it's breathing. If there's one thing I'd borrow from Toy Imagination's image, it's the commitment to building a world instead of simply photographing a figure. Every prop, every layer, every bit of atmosphere serves a purpose, and together they create an image that invites you to slow down, look around, and imagine everything happening just beyond the edges of the frame. That's fantastic storytelling. Great shot. Our third featured photo this week comes to us from Thor 2012. June, thank you. And I absolutely love how cinematic this image feels. It immediately drops you into the middle of a story without explaining a single thing. You know something's happening. You know there are sides, and you instantly start wondering, what happens next? The sign of great visual storytelling. That's what that is. One of the first things that jumped out to me is the layering. Your eyes start with Daredevil tucked into the foreground, then naturally move through the crates into the confrontation happening in the midground, before finally taking in the rest of the environment. That progression gives the image incredible depth and makes the alley feel much larger than it really is. I also love the camera angle. Instead of standing back and documenting the scene, June places us right there behind cover with Daredevil, almost like he's hiding alongside him and watching everything unfold. The lighting adds so much to the mood as well. The low-key shadows creating tension, while the red Daredevil suit immediately grabs your attention before your eyes begin exploring the rest of the frame. Then there are all these little environmental details. The window light, the exit sign, the stacked crates, the brick wall. None of them scream for attention on their own, but together they completely sell the location and make the world feel believable. If I was borrowing one idea from this image, It would be to use the foreground elements to make the viewer feel like they're a part of the scene instead of simply looking into it. That's one of those techniques that can completely change the way an image feels, and June absolutely nailed it here. Great job, man. Our fourth featured photo this week comes to us from SH Figure Artist. And if you're a wrestling fan, this one immediately puts a smile on your face. It captures that split second where you know the crowd is about to explode. That's what I love about this image. It doesn't just show a wrestling move, it captures the energy of the moment. The composition is super clean. By centering the action between the ropes, your attention goes exactly where it should, and those horizontal lines naturally frame the wrestlers without distracting from the action. The lighting is another thing that really stands out to me. The dramatic directional light sculpts the figures beautifully. It creates strong highlights and shadows that make every muscle and every expression feel larger than life. Then there's the depth of field. The shallow focus keeps us locked into the wrestlers while letting the background fall away just enough that nothing competes for our attention. It's a simple choice, but it's incredibly effective. One detail I especially appreciate is the referee reaching into the frame. It's easy to overlook, but that little addition transforms this from two action figures posing into a real wrestling match. It gives the scene authenticity and reminds us that there's more happening than just the move itself. If you're taking one idea away from SH Figure Art's image here, it would be the importance of timing. Dan, great job. Sometimes the perfect photograph isn't about the biggest setup or the most elaborate effects. It's about recognizing the exact moment that tells a story. This image captures the moment perfectly, and it feels every bit as exciting as watching the match unfold in real life. Dig it. Our fifth featured photo this week comes from Dark Realm Photography. And this is one of those images that prove you don't need explosions, dramatic effects to tell an incredible story. The very first thing that grabbed me was the body language. Joker isn't running away. He's strolling right toward the camera with an unmistakable grin, like he's completely in control of the situation behind him. Gordon may have him in custody, but somehow it still feels like the Joker is the one calling the shots. That's fantastic visual storytelling. And I also really like the composition here. Joker's positioned just off center on the right third of the frame, making him the undeniable focal point, while Gordon follows closely behind, adding context without stealing any of the attention. The shallow depth of field does a wonderful job of separating both the characters from the environment while still leaving enough of the alley visible that you instantly understand where the scene's taking place. The lighting is another big reason this image works so well. The soft side light coming through the window gives the figure shape and texture without feeling overly dramatic. It has a very cinematic quality to it, and it kind of reminds me of a frame pulled straight from a live action film. And of course, the color palette is instantly recognizable. The muted environment lets Joker's signature greens and purples naturally become the visual anchor of the frame without feeling oversaturated. One of my favorite little details is Gordon's expression and the way he's gripping his weapon. It's subtle, but it reinforces the tension and makes both characters feel completely committed to the story. If I was borrowing something from this particular photo, it would be the confidence to let the body language do the storytelling. Sometimes the pose alone can tell an entire story, and this image is a perfect example of that. Great job on it, man. Our sixth featured photo this week comes to us from Skullboy17, Rod. And this image instantly transported me back to the 1990s. Before you even start breaking it down, you can feel the attitude, the neon colors, the gritty pavement, the graffiti, the Santa Cruz deck. It all comes together to create a scene that's packed with personality and nostalgia. What I really appreciate here is how the composition guides your eyes. The skateboard is placed on a strong diagonal, which naturally creates energy and movement, while the texture of the cracked concrete leads you right up to the incredible deck graphics. It's simple, but it's incredibly effective. The lighting is another huge part of why this works. Those cool blues create the late night street vibe, while the bright greens and purples absolutely pop without ever feeling overdone. It's a great example of using color to create mood instead of just making something brighter. I also love the shallow depth of field. The board stays tack sharp while the graffiti behind it softens into complementary shapes and colors, giving that separation without losing the feeling of the place. And then there are the little details that reward you for spending a little extra time with the photo. The worn grip tape, the scuffed wheels, the sticker on the finger, and of course that classic Ninja Turtles graphic on the deck. They all add authenticity and make the image feel like it belongs to someone with a story instead of just simply being a collection of props. If you're borrowing one thing from Skullboy's image here, it would be commitment to the theme. Every single choice, from the color and textures to the props and the lighting, supports the same idea. And when everything works together like that, you create more than just a photograph. You create a feeling. And I think that's what makes this image so memorable. Awesome. Our 7th featured photo this week comes from Figure Theater. Wow. This is one of those images where your eyes almost don't know where to look at first because there's so much energy packed in one single frame. What really impresses me, though, is that even with all that action, nothing feels chaotic. Everything has a purpose. The composition immediately pulls you into the scene with a strong diagonal running through the frame, and then your eyes naturally follow the motion of the figure right into the flying shuriken. I think that's what those things are called. Did I do good? It's a fantastic example of using composition to create movement. The lighting, the color palette, they're all equally impressive. Those cool teals and greens establish the mood, while the brighter highlights and metallic accents create just enough contrast to make the figure stand out from the environment. It has a very cinematic look and feels like it belongs on the big screen. Then you start noticing all the layers, the foreground pipe, the spray of water, the floating debris, and the soft background all work together to create incredible depth while keeping your attention locked on that ninja. And speaking of movements, that's probably my favorite part of the entire image. The shuriken trails, the water spray, the flying leaves, and even the pose itself all combine to convince your brain that this figure's moving at full speed, even though we're looking at a completely still photograph. That's not easy to pull off. If I was borrowing something from Figure Theater on this one, it would be the willingness to commit to the action. Every effect, every angle, every lighting choice supports the same story. And because of that, this image doesn't just capture a moment, it captures momentum. And that's an incredible piece of photography. Well done, my man. Our next featured photo comes to us from Krieg Toy Photography. And this is one of those images that reminds me how powerful a single split second can be. The action's frozen at the exact right moment. The Mandalorian has the upper hand. The trooper is completely off balance, and without a single word of dialogue, you instantly understand what's happening here. That's great storytelling. Composition plays a huge role here. The Mandalorian is positioned beautifully on the left of that frame, while the stormtrooper's body creates this strong diagonal that adds movement and tension. Your eye naturally follows that line right back to the focal point of the scene. I also love the lighting. Those warm orange panels in that background create an incredible contrast against the cool metallic armor, making both the characters stand out while giving the entire image that unmistakable Star Wars feel. The reflective floor is another detail I really appreciate because it adds depth and reinforces the action without distracting from it. Then there are the poses. This is where the image really comes to life. The Mandalorian stance feels aggressive and controlled, while the stormtrooper's raised hands and body position perfectly sell the surprise of the attack. It's amazing how much emotion you can communicate just through the body language and poses of these figures. And one little detail that really caught my eye is the placement of the blaster right at the trooper's neck. It's subtle, but it's a detail that completes the story and makes the entire scene believable. If I were borrowing something from Krieg on this one, it would be the commitment to posing. Great poses can completely transform an action shot. And this image is a fantastic reminder that sometimes it's those tiny adjustments in the body language that make the biggest impact. Fantastic work, brother. Our 9th featured photo this week comes to us from Gundam224U, my boy Stevie. And this image grabbed me almost immediately because of how cinematic it feels. It doesn't look like a posed action figure shot. It feels like a frame pulled straight off a military thriller. Right away, your attention locks onto that skull-faced operative. From there, the image starts revealing itself one layer at a time. I really appreciate the composition here. The main subject sits beautifully on the left side of the frame, while the blurred soldier is in the foreground, creating an incredible sense of depth. Instead of looking at the photograph, you feel like you're standing in the middle of the action with the rest of the team. The lighting, the atmosphere, it all deserves a lot of credit too. The haze, the smoke, the subtle rim light, and those warm highlights against the muted military greens all work together to create the gritty, battle-worn mood that this photo has. Nothing feels overdone. It all serves to the story. And then there are all these little details that make you want to spend more time with the image. The laser cutting across the frame, the soft bokeh highlights, the drifting smoke, and of course the unforgettable skull mask. It all adds personality without competing for your attention. Every element feels intentional. If I were borrowing one thing from Stevie on this one, it'd be the layering. Foreground blur, a razor-sharp subject, and a soft atmospheric background create an incredible sense of immersion into the photograph. And it's a great reminder that depth isn't just created with your lens, it's created by thoughtfully building the entire scene. This is a fantastic example of how atmosphere can elevate an already great composition into something that feels truly cinematic. Great work, man. Our final featured photo this week comes to us from Sneaky Figures. And I think this is a fantastic way to wrap up the episode because it leaves you asking a question. What happened here? And what's about to happen next? That's one of my favorite things about great toy photography. It doesn't just show you a moment, it invites your imagination to finish a story. Right away, the composition pulls you into the action. The central character becomes the obvious focal point, but the two silhouetted figures on either side frame the scene perfectly and create this incredible sense of tension. You almost feel like you're standing in the alley watching the standoff unfold. The lighting deserves a lot of credit here too. The cool teal shadows, contrasted with those warm orange highlights, create a gritty neo-noir atmosphere that immediately set the mood. It gives the scene depth, separates the characters beautifully, and adds just enough drama without ever feeling overdone. I also love the way the photographer built the layers into the image. The foreground silhouettes, the sharply focused central figure, and then all of those environmental details in the background make the world feel believable and lived in. And speaking of background details, one thing that really caught my eye was the fallen Ninja Turtles scattered behind the main character. It's easy to miss them at first glance, but once you notice them, the story, it suddenly changes completely. Suddenly you realize that this isn't the beginning of a fight, this is the aftermath of something much bigger. If I was borrowing something from Sneaky here on this image, it would be the confidence to let the environment tell part of the story. Sometimes the most important details aren't your main subject at all. They're the clues hidden around them that invite the viewer to slow down, look closer, and become part of the narrative. I think that's a fantastic way to tell a story with a single frame. That wraps up this week's episode of The Breakdown. Thanks so much for hanging out with me and celebrating some incredible toy photography from around the community. We'll be back every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern, with 10 more amazing images and the artist behind them. If you'd like to be featured on the future episode, make sure you're tagging at the Domesticated Caveman over on the Instagrams. I can't promise I'll see everything, but tagging me, gives you the best chance of landing on a future breakdown. Till next time, I'm Gannon, the Domesticated Caveman. Keep creating, keep supporting each other, and I'll see y'all next Tuesday. Peace.